Good morning. Matters of law, if any? Pardon?
No, sir.
And Judge, we will have a very short issue to address. I think the proper time to do it is after this witness. It will be a matter of the law, and it's not
Pardon?
the jury view, Your Honor. So, but I think the proper time to address this is after this witness has testified, because he is testifying against the fair standards.
Okay. And how long is this witness expected to testify?
Your Honor, I can't imagine that with direct and cross it will be much more than an hour and a half, but things have been so variable that we will see where that lands us when he's done. I would imagine sometime between 11 and 12 we would be at the point where we discuss the matter of law.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, we told them to come at 9:30, and we'll, based on another one of these matters of law, bring the jury in later, suggestions. So they're not due until 9:30, so we'll be in recess. can bring the jury.
Judge, one more item, just for your heads up for you, because of the technology involved with this Faro scanning stuff, it's not going to be able to go back to the jury, but the solicitor and I have talked and have agreed to ask Mr. Licio during his presentation to take screenshots so that we can go through those and see if we have any objections, and then on Monday, we will be able to have them printed out and entered into evidence that the jury can't manipulate the Faro scanner itself. So we'll just be taking snapshots when the solicitor wants a snapshot of a particular area, and then we will attempt to jointly agree that those should be entered, and if we can't, then we can bring it up to the court.
All right. Solicitor?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Eugene Licio.
You swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your first and last name and spell your last name loud and clearly in the microphone.
My name is Eugenio Licio. It's E-U-G-E-N-I-O. Last name is Licio, L-I-S-C-I-O, but I go by Eugene.
Good morning, Mr. Licio.
Good morning.
You don't hail from these parts, do you?
No, I don't.
Where are you from?
I'm from Toronto, Canada.
And what do you do in Toronto?
I run a business, my own business, as an expert witness doing 3D reconstructions of crime and accident scenes.
Okay, how did you get into 3D reconstructions of accident scenes? Tell us a little bit about your education.
My background is originally in aerospace engineering, so I went to university in Toronto. It's Ryerson Polytechnic University. It's one of the two universities in downtown Toronto. Did aerospace engineering. I worked in the field for a while, so I worked for McDonnell Douglas, and then it became Boeing. And so I then went on to work at a company in Buffalo, which also made aerospace machinery. At Boeing, I worked in the materials and process engineering laboratory, so it was a job that involved failure investigation, so anything that touched the aircraft, or if there was ever a problem with machining, composites, coolants, you name it, we were usually called on to help go investigate what happened and why. At the company that I worked at in Buffalo, they made big machinery for aircraft, so basically for assembling the wing skins and the fuselage and stuff. So that involved, or while I was there, I was involved with some like 3D laser trackers. So they're equipment that is used to basically measure like the jigs and the equipment for the aircraft to a very, very high accuracy. And also, while I was there, I had some ideas for like new machinery, so I'd put and design some new machines that I'd put together, and I'd do like little animations and things, and I'd send it off to the engineers. And so that was sort of how I first got involved with the 3D, and I started thinking about what other areas can you apply this 3D technology to, because it was very, it was something that was very easily understood when people saw it. And so I looked at automotive and robotics and things, and then I looked at forensics. And so when I saw the opportunities that could be done and how this could be applied, that's where I first decided that I was going to commit down that road.
Okay, and if you could speak just a tad bit slower for the court reporter because she's taking down everything you say, and your pace is robust. So
Yes.
if you could just slow it down a bit, and we'll make sure that we get all this on the record.
Sure.
So your undergraduate degree led to a job where you started doing some 3D work. How did then you get involved in starting your own company?
It first started more by sort of freelancing and meeting different people, and so there were some key people in Toronto that did like accident reconstruction, and some did personal injury law and civil litigation. And so when I began sort of working with them, they gave me some opportunities to do some work with them. So, you know, the very first one I think I did was like a medical animation of a gentleman who had his foot crushed in a car accident. So they wanted to show how the bones were crushed based on the x-rays. Another early one was a slip and fall. It was a window washer who actually fell off of a four-story building. And so little by little I started to get these little jobs, and then I decided that I had enough work that I could just go start my own business and then go full-time.
And what sort of tools do you use in this profession?
Because it's usually 3D technologies that I'm using, I have a wide variety of tools, so not just one or two, but for example, the laser scanner is one important one, and that's great for larger scenes, much like what we have in this case. So collision reconstruction, roadways, buildings, surveying, it's a very, very powerful tool. I also use photogrammetry, so I started with that early on at about 2005, 2006, and that allows you to take measurements from photographs. And what was important to me when I started was I noticed that there were a lot of photographs that you get as part of a like civil litigation or even crime scene, but I noticed that often there were measurements that were taken at the scene that you could recover from the photographs, and so that's where I saw the power and usefulness of photogrammetry. I also use smaller scanners, so there's like hand scanners that you can use to document smaller objects, right down to like 3D microscopes where you can look at very, very, very tiny, tiny details on things like cartridge cases or fabrics and textiles and things like that. So it's a very wide range of tools that you have to use if you're working with evidence of all sizes.
And you said in particular you did the forensic side of this. Explain to the jury what you mean by the forensic reconstruction.
Yeah, so I mean, people can use the 3D technologies for different areas. So some people use it for architecture, engineering, construction, film and television. So what I was very interested in was how I could reconstruct a scene, whether it be a car accident or whether it would be a shooting incident or anything along those lines. And so one of the interesting things with 3D technologies is that you can combine them together. And when you start putting them together, just like I did in this case, you actually start to get things that you couldn't get with one technology alone. So you know, I look at trying to use methods and standards as much as I can, and use software. Of course, software is a big part of this thing, to reconstruct these events and then say something about the distances or the perspectives or the motion, all things along those lines.
Have you ever had any training to prepare you to do this sort of work?
Yes, I've had training in different areas. So often it comes from the manufacturer's side. So manufacturers obviously offer training like for the laser scanner, for the total station. The total station is another instrument I didn't mention, but it's like what surveyors use. If you ever see people on the side of the road and they've got a pole and there's a guy looking through and you're wondering what the heck they're doing, that's usually a total station, so it's used for surveying. So I've been trained on that. I've had training in photogrammetry, both in different software packages right from the manufacturer. One was called PhotoModeler, which I use regularly. Another one's called ElcoVision. I've taken training courses from it's a test prep course that is online. I think it's like a 2-day course, I think. It's from the American Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. And there's tons of other training that I've done at different workshops. I even just most recently, I've been to the bloodstain pattern analysis workshop, which was in Salt Lake City, and I've been there for the last 3 years, always going to learn about new things. I've done trajectory shooting reconstruction courses, one in Atlanta and one in Toronto. And I also have done I said photogrammetry, but for example, like drones, and there's a number of different things. So yeah, I try to do as much as I can in terms of learning.
Do you belong to any professional societies or organizations that deal in your line of work?
Yes, I do. So I would say probably the most pertinent one is called the International Association of Forensic and Security Metrology. It's a really long, I didn't choose it. So it's IAFSM. And so that organization was started in about 2005, 2006 from people I think the initial people were like people from the FBI, the Secret Service. There were people from private industry, even some manufacturers were on board early on. And the intent there was that a lot of these tools, these 3D tools were coming on, like the laser scanners, and people were trying to understand how they could be used for, again, crime and accident scene documentation, and also for security pre-planning. So the Secret Service uses these significantly. They'll go out and they'll scan an arena, an auditorium beforehand so that, when the president arrives or whatever, they have everything, pretty much scoped out. So that organization I got involved with. My first presentation there, I think, I was invited to do a presentation in Houston. That was 2010, and I loved it. It was fantastic. When somebody says these are my people, they were all 3D people. We were all geeking out on technology and stuff. So I became heavily involved in the organization. So I've been the president of the organization for the past 4 years, and I'm outgoing president. So we just had our conference in Orlando last week. So we had about over 80 registrants, and there are people from all over. We had people giving workshops from the Zurich police, there's people from Germany, there was people from the UK, there was people from New Zealand. We had people from all over the US, Canada, and before we've had people from France, from Brazil, from you name it all, fairly well. It's a very niche group, but we're sort of very spread out and very focused on everything from photogrammetry to forensic anthropology. We invite academia there as well to give presentations. So that's probably the most pertinent group that I belong to. I also belong to it's American Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. And I've been involved with them. I presented at their conference. They started a forensic working group, so I presented there last year. And I'm also involved in they have like a little working group now that is involved with some of these, NIST has like these working groups for forensic sciences in different disciplines. And so they're sort of keeping in contact with them, and there's a select group of us that are sort of in that circle, just trying to help where we can.
So have you given presentations then regarding your skills, experience, and training to various groups about 3D recreation?
Yeah, I do a lot of traveling to conferences, presentations. I do a lot of workshops for people. So I do train people as well. So part of what I do is I get contracted to do training for different police agencies. So I've done United States Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory, the NCIS, Federal Police in Brazil. I've done training for Unified Police in Salt Lake City. There's numerous. I lose track after a while. So next week I'm going to be doing an agency near Pensacola. A week after that in Michigan. So I do a lot of training. I teach at the University of Toronto in there's a campus called Mississauga. It's next to Toronto, so they have a campus for the University of Toronto, and they have a forensic sciences program there. So I also teach as part of I have a course that I teach, so I'm an adjunct professor there, and I got involved with them also around 2010. and in their forensic anthropology group. The director is a forensic anthropologist, and so I went out and they dig up these practice graves, and they were taking a lot of hand measurements, and what I did was I came in and I said, well, let me take some photographs and reconstruct a 3D model. And so after that, the director just said, we need to talk, type of thing. So I developed my own course. As far as I know, it's the only course of its kind in the world that deals specifically with forensics. And so we take a lot of these different instruments and tools, and I try to teach the students how to solve problems using 3D technologies. So things like could be bullet trajectories, it could be bloodstain pattern analysis, it could be shoe print matching, it could be just a whole number of different things. And so the reason why I did it was that I had to get training from so many different little places. There was no one place to go to get a course. And so I decided to collect all that information and then put it into a course so that students could take it. So yeah, teaching and workshops and conferences are very important. A big part of the university also is, because you're dealing with a lot of students, is doing research and validation. So that's a huge part of anyone who's in forensic sciences or working in the forensic sciences these days is probably going to be involved with research of some sort. And some of the forensic science disciplines have been under a lot of criticism in the past 5-6 years. So at the school, I take intern students, and so at the moment I have 5 through the school working on different projects, but I have 4 that were previous students who are working on other projects as well. So I've got about 9 students right now. It's a lot of work, but it's really enjoyable. It's very helpful too, because in this area there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to sort of advance the discipline. So I have about 9 or 10 published papers that are peer-reviewed in scientific journals or in professional forensic groups, and they're in many different areas. So some focusing on the laser scanner, some focusing on bullet trajectories, some focusing on bloodstain pattern analysis, using different means and different technologies. So yeah.
So you said that you train various police agencies. Is that mostly in the use of the Faro scanner, or is that all 3D technology?
The majority of it is in the use of the laser scanner, although I have done courses on photogrammetry before.
And have you ever testified in court before, presenting your findings as an expert witness?
Yes, I have.
And where have you testified?
Working backwards, let's see, the most recently was was a trial in Toronto. So it was an officer-involved shooting. So I was asked to assist the Special Investigations Unit there. And so I was actually testifying for the prosecution in that case. And in that case, we did laser scanning, and we combined some video as well. It's very, very similar to what we're doing here. And I basically did a reconstruction, and we used the 3D reconstruction at court to look at distances and look at positions of people, look at perspectives to get an idea of where people were situated and such. Previous to that, I testified in Indiana. That was a defense case. It was a wrongful conviction. So it was a Indiana state trooper that was charged with killing his wife and 2 children. And in that one, it was the 3rd trial, and he eventually was found not guilty. They found the guy who did it, but same thing: reconstruction, laser scanning, bullet trajectories in that case, and just offering a different perspective and offering measurements at trial. I've also done projects where, I think the the first case I did actually was a photogrammetry case. So it was different than what we're doing here today, but it was working with a single image. So it was a vehicle accident where somebody had taken a photo, and I had to take measurements from that photograph.
Have you ever been disqualified as an expert in any court where you attempted to testify as an expert?
No.
Your Honor, at this time we'd offer Mr. Licio as an expert in 3D reconstruction and photogrammetry.
No objection.
He's so qualified.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Licio, let's talk a little bit about photogrammetry. Could you explain what photogrammetry is, what it aims to do, and how one can accomplish it?
Okay. So photogrammetry, today photogrammetry is becoming very popular because they've simplified it a lot. So there's a lot of programs now where you take a whole bunch of photos, you upload it, and then it spits out a model, spits out a 3D model. So people don't have to do anything. That's not how photogrammetry started out, let me tell you. It was much more manual, was much more an involved process of clicking points and doing a bunch of things. And if we go back even farther, historically, photogrammetry is actually a very old technology. So right about the time when the first cameras came about in the 1850s, there was a Frenchman called Aimé Lossedat who said, you know, I can put this camera up on a balloon. And so he was the first drone guy, I would call him, because, you know, he put it up there and he was flying around. He was taking pictures over in France, and he could create these topographic maps. He was using it for surveying. So the roots of photogrammetry go back very, very far. The word itself, photogrammetry, is made up of 3 words. So photo, or photos, meaning light, gramma, meaning drawing, and then metron, meaning to measure. So you have a light drawing, which is a picture, and then to measure. So the basic definition of photogrammetry is being able to take measurements from photographs. Now today there's a much more complex definition that's given by the American Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. And that's because there's all these fancy sensors now. You can use UV, you can use thermal, you can use all these different types of sensors. But at the heart of photogrammetry is that you can take measurements from photographs. Now, some people want to oversimplify it a little bit. So if I took a picture and I had a ruler in the picture and I gave it to you, you could take the picture and say, oh, there's a ruler there, and I can count how many it is. So that's photogrammetry, right? Well, I guess you could call that photogrammetry, but that's really not what it is. Usually photogrammetry involves some kind of process or mathematical function or some kind of calculation. That's usually what it entails. It has a lot to do with the understanding and operation of a camera and where a camera is located in space, okay, and how it's oriented and how it takes the photo. Usually when people do photogrammetry, it's from multiple images. So through the years, if you think about, you know, the world wars and such like that, it was always beneficial to know what was going on someplace else. So they would take images and photographs, and they would process those photographs to get contour maps, and interpretation of photographs is also included in the definition of photogrammetry. So as photogrammetry developed after World War II, from analog photogrammetry went to digital, and then digital is where a lot of these advanced functions started to come in. So there was a lot of mathematics behind photogrammetry. And so today where we are with photogrammetry is that you can use it for creating very nice 3D models, but you can also use it to work with a single image and try to recover some information.
Okay, can you combine photogrammetry with a laser scanner for any particular purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I mentioned before was you can combine these technologies together. So if you have an image that's been taken with a photograph, if you think about what happens when you take a picture, you're taking all these objects that are in the 3D world, right? They come together, they go through a lens, and the lens is just like it's a focusing instrument, right? It takes the light in it, just like if you have a magnifying glass and you can lift the magnifying glass up and down, and you'll see that the light on a sunny day will get focused to a point, or you can spread it out. Well, that's what it's doing to all the light that's in the room. So if we take the corners of the courtroom up there and up there, those two, as they come into the camera, they hit the lens and they get focused to a point. Then they cross that point and they hit this flat sensor, right? So we've gone from the 3D world to the 2D world, okay? So you can take now, well, let me back up. So you can think of photogrammetry, or part of one operation in photogrammetry is going backwards now. If I have the picture and I can see all the points on the picture, I should be able to pick a pixel on that picture and project a straight light ray back through the lens, right, and then back out to where it crosses that point in the room. The problem is when you go from 3D to 2D, a sensor, you lose something. You lose that depth information. You can't recover it again unless you have something like a laser scanner. When I have the laser scanner, I have all the coordinates, and I have all the points in the room. So now I can pick a point in the corner of the room, and then I can pick a point in the laser scan, and the laser scan gives that point a 3D coordinate. And I can do that for multiple points. And so by doing that, I can now come back and figure out where that camera is located in the same space or coordinate system as the laser scanner. That's the operation that we're doing here.
And when you determine the location of the camera at some fixed point in space, if you have a 3D image, can you move that camera?
Right, so once you have the camera located, you can virtually look through that camera again. But the benefit of having the 3D laser scan is that we can move outside of that view. So we can now move to the side, we can move around, we can get a different view of the scene. And of course, the laser scan is, each point has a 3D coordinate, so you can measure any 2 points and pick some information up, whether it's distance or angles, whatever it is that you want. But the real benefit, I think, is that it's very visual, so you can actually see what you're looking at, and it provides you a different view and a different perspective.
And let's talk a little bit about the laser scanner. So this is something you've been trained in how to operate?
That's correct.
And this is something that you've trained other people how to operate?
That's correct.
And could you step down here and just let the jury get a better look at what the scanner looks like?
Yeah, sure. So I can maybe talk to you a little bit about what this does, but I think more importantly, it's why it's important. And the reason it's important is that it establishes the basis of the reconstruction. So it assigns all those 3D points and distances to the reconstruction. So this is a fundamental part. The way the laser scanner works is that there is a small little window up in here. You see a little glass window. And inside that window, on this side, is a little laser. Okay, it's infrared, so you can't see it. And there's also a camera in there as well. And that laser hits this mirror, and you'll notice that the mirror is at 90 degrees. It's cut at 45 degrees. So actually what happens is the laser hits the mirror, and then it gets redirected at 90 degrees. This mirror spins. So it's going to spin like this, all around. So it can't scan below itself, because it's going to hit, the laser eventually is going to hit this, but it can scan all the way around. So it's about 330, 300 degrees. So, and then this unit itself spins around this way. So there's a little motor here. So this unit, well, not the whole tripod, but the whole unit will actually start to spin around. So what it does is basically a 360 sweep of the room while the laser is spinning around like this. So it basically tries to capture anything that's in the line of sight. So, for example, Mr. McCune is standing on the podium there. I can't see him behind. It's not going to be able to pick him up behind. If I need to move, or if I need to see what's behind, I need to physically pick this up, move it over, where I can see him, and then scan again. So, this has a range of about 120 meters, so that's 300 and whatever, it's about 400 feet or so. And it works day or night. If it's very dark, of course, you're not going to pick up color, but one of the things that it measures is intensity, so how strong the signal is when it comes back. And so as a result, you get like a grayscale image, so like almost like I'll call it a black and white image, but it kind of sees in the dark because it has its own light source, which is very helpful for nighttime scenes and such. So,
Can you turn that on without recording and just let it do one quick spin so that?
It will record. I can shut off the camera, but it will record, and then what I can do is I can delete the file afterwards. That's okay.
we don't want to show anything. I just wanted to show them how it physically operates.
And we vote.
Yeah.
Not yet.
So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna shut off the camera just to make it go faster. And I'm also gonna turn down the resolution. So there's settings on here, like a digital camera, you can choose a high resolution or a low resolution. So I'm gonna turn this down, so it will just take just about a minute and a half. So I'm gonna go. And you'll see it'll start to flash, and you'll see the mirror start to wind up. A second here. It normally makes sounds, it sounds like a truck backing up, but I shut it off, it's annoying. And you'll see it starts like this spin. So the mirror spins, the laser is sweeping at very high speed. And the mirror turns on.
Pardon me, the adjustments that you make, that you were making there, can you adjust how accurate the scan is, or can you fine tune the scan? What judgment goes into deciding how to scan?
Yeah, there's two settings that are most important. One is like the resolution that I talked about, so you can choose a very low resolution or a very high resolution. When you're outdoors, you typically want to use a slightly higher resolution. When you're in a small space, you can turn the resolution slightly down. The other option that's on there is a quality setting. So you can increase the quality setting or decrease the quality setting, and it affects the amount of time that it's going to take. So depending on the surfaces that you're going to capture, you can increase or decrease that. Yeah, so that's the...
Okay, thank you. And could you, unless you have anything else to explain to the jury, just stow that, make sure that it's down so that everyone can see you in the witness.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that, the brand of that, I notice you call these laser scanners. The brand of that scanner is Faro.
Yeah, it's Procedural, but there are many companies that make these. There's probably 4 major companies right now, and they're very well known. They sell them for different areas. 2 or 3 of them are much they're better known for forensics or for police, but I would say this is a very popular unit for police agencies.
And is this a brand of unit that you train police agencies in?
It is. So this is the Focus 120 model. So it was the first form or first model of this type that Faro released. But they've currently released 3 other models since then. Yeah, but they look the same. They're different colors and they have different quality and resolution and range. So the latest scanner, I think, has a 360 meter range, which is well over 1,000 feet. You know, it's very far. Yeah.
How is the operation of the scanner affected by weather? Or you talk about nighttime, how about weather?
So, you know, when you hit the button to scan, you can scan anywhere, really, and through anything. But it's a laser, so for example, you couldn't scan a water, like you couldn't scan a lake or a pond. So the beam will just go into the water and it doesn't return, right? It's dependent on the surface, something bouncing back. But I've scanned in the snow, I've scanned in the rain before. What you don't want to do is get the unit, this particular model, wet. The latest model has what's called an IP rating, so you can, if it gets wet or whatever, it doesn't matter. But this one was the first one that they released, so it doesn't. But I've had to do it before with an umbrella. So an umbrella over me and the scanner, and you just kind of stand there and let it finish. So long as it doesn't get wet, it's fine. If surfaces are wet, so for example, you have like a wet roadway surface, it's usually fine. It's not a problem. It's only when you have puddled water, like something that's, you know, maybe half an inch or deeper, that will start to give you some problems with the scanner.
And just to understand, if the scanner is placed under an umbrella or a tent, there won't be any vertical component to the scan, is that true?
Yeah, so if I stand with an umbrella over the unit, and it's just open sky above me, then it catches the inside of the umbrella. But what I can do is I can just hide that after. It was only sky anyway, nothing above me, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have an effect on all the other results.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about cameras and lenses and the human eye. If you can explain what a camera sees and why or why not it's important to perhaps adjust to what the human eye might see.
Okay, so I spoke briefly before about like the lens on a camera, how a very simple camera works. You have light that comes into a lens. The lens focuses that light to a point. It's called a focal point. And then the light passes through and then gets projected on a 2D sensor. So I always think about it in terms of we go from 3D, come into the lens, and then we project it on a 2D surface. But zoom lenses, okay, actually change the way that light bends. And so when you want to get a zoom, or let's start with a wide angle. Sometimes I do it differently, and I say, let's pretend you're looking through a tube, and that tube is very short, like a ring. If you hold it up to your eye, you can see everything out to the sides, so you have a very wide sort of field of view. But now if I make that tube 10 feet long, I can only see a little space through that tube, and that's kind of what a zoom lens is doing. It's causing the light rays to bend differently. So sometimes when we talk about perspective in photogrammetry, I know that it's used as a term that, you know, people say you need to see things from my perspective. Well, often that means, you know, from my position. But when we're talking about photogrammetry, we're also talking about the way the lines bend, okay, the focal length. So the perspective, okay, or the focal length, and some of the issues that can happen with a lens affect what you're looking at. So if you've ever looked through or seen security camera video, they're usually wide field of view. They want to capture a very wide area that's in front of them in a small room or maybe at a gas station or something. But you'll also notice that when you look at those images, you'll see bending. So objects that should be straight lines, they bend, okay? So that's called barrel distortion. So most lenses have, well, all lenses have some form of distortion. They have some form of characteristics that changes the way the light comes in and hits the sensor. So nothing is perfect, right? Nothing is perfect. So your cell phone, the little lens that's on there, it has distortion, okay? So, and there's programs you can use to correct for that distortion. So,
pardon me, does that depend on the type of lens, the type of camera?
absolutely. So even if you have two cameras or two phones that are identical, and when I say identical, I mean that they are the same make and model, they will have different characteristics. Even the way that the lens is lined up to the sensor. So they use like a glue and stuff like that. So if it bends or if there's any moving there in between the two, it doesn't seem like much, and it may not be apparent to us, but there are differences between the two. So the lens distortion will definitely change what it is that you're seeing. Now, depending on what you're doing, it may not make a difference. It may be so small that it's not a big deal. But when you're just looking at certain things, some things may appear closer or some things may appear farther, depending on the type of lens that you have.
And I neglected to do this, but yesterday you had an opportunity to take a scan of this courtroom.
That's correct.
Could you please take the jury through sort of a tour of what the scanner did yesterday after they had left for the day?
Yeah, sure thing. Could you publish, please? Okay, it's partly there. I can see a screen. It might be extending the screen. Let me just have a look here if it's me. Okay, so here's the interesting part. When you scan inside a room, again, because it's a 3D model, you can move outside. You can move to just about any position you want. So this is the courtroom here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly fly inside. Okay, we're going to go through. And so this is where I sort of scanned from yesterday. There were different scanner positions, so I actually took 4. In fact, I can turn that on so you can see where the scanner positions actually were. There we go. So this little scanner head position is exactly where the scanner was placed, and that's where it did the 360, where it does a scan position. And so you'll see as I go from here to here, and you'll see the court reporter there. She was there. And you'll also notice all these people back here. So they're moving around. So the scanner doesn't take a picture. It's a laser that's sweeping. So as people move around, as cars drive by, they get caught. And so when it takes the laser sweep and when it takes the photo, you could be in 2 different positions. So it's not good for moving subjects. It's meant more for things like evidence that's going to be staying, at the scene. But it is I put 4 of these together, so I've got, let me see here. I've got one that was over here. Oops, I'm outside now. Let me get back in the wall. So I've got one here. I've got one here. I've got another here. And I've got another here. And what I did was I took a measurement just very quickly. So I just have a little, it's a laser dystometer. You buy these at Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. And it's just a laser, so you point it, and it just has a little dot on the ceiling or whatever, and once you click on it, it gives you a measurement from either the back or the front to the unit. So that measurement I took in here, and there's a little line that's going across here. Let me see if I can find, there it is. It's very small, but I've got it here. Just let me do it, this be a little bit clearer if I do it from here. Measurements, wall to wall. So it's telling me that it's 43.069 feet. And what I did was I just took a line from a point that I put on the wall up onto the opposite wall that's right over there. And when I took it with the unit, I had a measurement of 43.068, so we're 0.001 feet. So it's a very accurate instrument, at least within the 2. You can take very, very good measurements with this thing. Of course, it also helps to see things, like, so for example, if we were talking about evidence on the ground, we can zoom in. I can pick on, if I wanted to know, for example, a measurement between this point and another point. It's very useful. Now, of course, those are simple measurements. You could just take a tape measure and put it out, but this allows you to take measurements that you can't take with a tape measure or would be very difficult to take with a tape measure. So, for example, I could now go up to the ceiling in the corner here where we can't reach, and I can click on that point, and then I can click on a point, I don't know, up on the corner here. I mean, I'm not going to bother doing it, but I'm just letting you know that it has capabilities and lets you do things that you couldn't do with a tape measure or even with something like this.
Okay, because that data has been captured by the scanner, those points are fixed in the database?
Yeah, so the way that the scanner works, when it takes those 4 sets of scans, you have to put them together after. So that's what the software is meant for. They call it registration, but it's like an alignment. Just think about alignment. So it puts them all together so that they're all in the same coordinate system. And once it does that, each and every point, so what you're looking at the moment are millions and millions and millions of points. That's all they are. They're just tightly packed together that it almost looks like a surface. But they're really just points. And those points, you can pick on any one of those millions of points and pick up a coordinate. So it'll tell you what the X, Y, and Z position is of that coordinate. It will also tell you what the intensity signal was coming back to the scanner. So a white surface will have a very high intensity. A dark surface will have a very low intensity. And of course, because the camera took a picture, you also have a color channel. So you have red, green, and blue assigned to that point.
Okay, now let's move towards this case. Did you get any Faro data for this case?
Yes, I did.
And did you talk to anyone from SLED who was doing the Faro data work in this case?
Yes, I spoke with Mr. James Talon.
And are you and Mr. Talon acquainted with each other personally or professionally?
Yeah, I know James from a conference that a colleague of mine had organized, so he attended and he also presented.
Okay, and can you tell us, pull up the SLED data, the Faro data that you have, and sort of step us through how that data was recorded and collected?
Okay, do you want me to do it in the 3D Studio Max or their original file?
Did you look at their original file?
Yes, I did.
And did you convert it to 3D Studio Max?
Yeah, basically what I did was I just took the data out and I just imported it into 3D Studio Max.
And what is the purpose of that?
3D Studio Max is the software that I use, and what it does is it allows me to do things like combining the camera images. It also allows me to put models and character models back in. So it's a much more functional 3D software program than the Faro software. The intent of the Faro software is mainly for putting the scans together. It's for piecing it together. You can do some other things, but if you're doing a full reconstruction, then 3D Studio Max is the better software to use.
And so 3D Studio Max is for presentation purposes, but doesn't change the underlying data?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, let's take a look at your 3D Studio Max.
Okay. So this is the, I'm gonna zoom right out. I have a feeling you've probably seen this before, but this is basically the SLED data here, and it was a number of laser scans that were taken and then combined together to sort of create the overall 3D model. So this set of data was something that I received. There were two actually. So one was received early on, and then there was a second set, an updated set that was received. So this is the updated set. It has this police cruiser that's been included in here. That was not there originally, but what SLED did was they took the exemplar scan and they put it in place over the scan of the scene here. So I guess they put it in as best as where they thought it would fit. And what I've done is I've included just this little model of the Mercedes here, just in the relative position.
And when you, can you move through the scene and tell us where how physically this Faro scan was taken? Is there a way to determine where the scans were taken?
So remember when I was talking about the laser sweeping, and it goes around, and it can't scan below itself. So wherever you see these little holes like this, that's a scan position. So we have a number of these. So as I zoom in, you'll see that there's one here. There's a whole number of them. There's some down here. I'll zoom out a bit, and you'll just start seeing a whole number of these little holes. Some that go down the yellow brick road, and there's some that go down the little alleyway back here. And that provides you with an idea of where all the scans were taken.
Do you happen to know how many total scans were taken in this matter?
It was, I can't remember if it was 17 or 19. It was something on that order.
And the bigger the crime scene, the more scans you have to take?
Yeah, for sure.
And does the Faro, you said it combines the scans. Will it combine that many scans for this one presentation?
Yeah, I've done projects where I've had 300 scans. And you can have, I know people that have done thousands. So you can combine all those together if you need to, yes.
Okay, and the utility of the Faro data presented this way is both in point of view and measurement, is that correct?
Yes.
Explain what we talk about with point of view and maybe get behind the police
Yeah, sure.
car.
Well, so when we talk about the perspective, I was talking about how the lines bend and how you can go from a very zoomed in view to a very zoomed out view. So what I'll do is, just as a, if I can figure this out, haha, just a second. My screen is not the same as it was before, so let me just do it this way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the field of view, and I'm going to start pulling back. So I'm increasing the field of view to make it a wide angle, very wide angle. You'll see that it gets to a point where, oops, sorry, let me go back there. You'll see it starts to look unnatural, oh, and it's even hard to control. So see how it stretches everything? I've got a really wide field of view, and I can keep going, and it just makes everything look bizarre. It's because I'm getting all the light coming in, like as wide as I can. If I do the opposite now, it becomes like a telescopic view. So I go forward, and then you start zooming in. So now I got to move back, okay, in order to, now it's really like a zoomed in view. So it changes the way things look depending on the type of perspective, the type of focal length that you have. So focal length, you can almost call it like the amount of zoom that you have.
Okay, and let's do a measurement, if you would. Let's go out to Craig Street there. Say slightly to the right of where we see that the first Faro scan point there.
Okay.
Just, yes. Somewhere towards the foreground from that Faro scan.
Okay, so how about we go from, let me just move this here. It's made these things incredibly small here. So, all right, there we go. And I'm going to make sure this is okay. All right, so let's say somewhere around here, you said?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, it's from here to?
Go to where the Faro scanner runs out of data going down Craig Road.
Okay. And you want to know what that measurement is?
Yes.
385 feet.
385 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And can we put ourselves in that point that's 385 feet away and look back
Sure.
Craig Road?
Yep.
Okay, so this would be looking Craig Road towards Advance Auto at 385 feet away.
Correct.
If they had taken more scans, could we get to a point that we're 700 feet away and have the same perspective?
Yes.
So in order to do that, they would have just had to move the scanner down Craig Road.
That's correct.
Do you know if there is any detail you can pick up from this distance? Can you with a focal point, a normal focal point of a human eye, pick up any detail at that distance?
Well, let me see. What I can do is, I guess, well, you mentioned something there, so I'll just explain it. But typically, it's generally accepted that people see with a focal length of about 50 millimeters. And so when we're trying to sort of say, you know, what did somebody see or what somebody might have seen, it's very difficult to say, well, this is exactly what they saw. But what we can do is we can try to match the perspective, so the way that they see, the way that lines bend. 50 millimeters is something that I will use in most of the shots that I'm saying that I'm looking at somebody's perspective, that sort of thing. So I will make I'll do a camera here. I'll need these again. I'll have to look at this here, targeted, and I'm going to make it 50 millimeters. Okay. So yeah, I'm looking at it at 50 millimeters down this and looking down the road.
Okay, and could we get a screen capture of that, please?
Sure.
And what was that distance again?
Was 3, let me just make sure, 387. 385?
385 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go up the road a bit and take a look at the entrance to the yellow brick road off of Craig Road.
Okay. I'm trying to save this so that we've got it. Court exhibits. Did you want me to label this any particular name or just clipboard?
Just say Craig Road 385.
Okay. Yep. So now
Okay,
you,
so let's go up towards the entrance to the yellow brick road there. And look at that corner there where you would be turning from Craig to the yellow brick road. And do you know when this data was, Faro data was taken?
I was told that this was taken something like 19 or 20 days after the incident.
And do you know why they took it so much later after the incident, or do you know?
I've heard only since that something
Not-
about.
You don't have to tell us.
I don't have the
Okay.
the facts on that.
Okay, Mark, can you mark about 15 feet off with some of the 15-foot distance? Let's go 8 feet down Yellow Brick Road and 7 feet down Craig Road, as if one were making a turn into that.
Okay. Let me just move there like this. So, okay, like turning around this corner here?
Yes, just rounding the corner there.
Okay. So 2 lines that add up to about 15 feet?
Yes.
Oops, sorry. There we go. Okay, that one is about 8 feet or 9 feet. So I'm just going to change that a bit so that it doesn't. Okay, and that one is 8. So I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see it. It's a little bit too big. Okay, like that. Actually, I'll make it smaller. And then the second line, oops, that's floating in the air. You know what, sorry, let me do this again. Let's snap to the lines, the electrical lines that were up there. Let's try this again quickly. Line. Okay, there we go. Okay, that line is going to be 6 feet there, and then another line about 9 feet.
Yes, sir.
That's 6, it's about 9. Yeah, that's 9. So those are the 2 lines.
Okay, and could we get a screenshot of that, please?
Just like that?
Yes. That's
Okay. And how would you like to label these?
Just
this one?
label that turn onto Yellow Brick Road.
Okay.
Okay, and now let's do something that I can't figure out whether anyone ever did or not. Let's take a walk through the crime scene.
Okay.
So let's start at Advanced Auto Parts and just go down Craig Road. From a street type perspective.
Okay. Down the center of the road is okay?
Yeah, down the center of the road is fine. You can cut the corner a little bit to the right as you turn onto Craig Road. Pardon me, the Yellow Brick Road. And let's just go straight down the yellow brick road until you run out of scan capability.
Okay.
Now, as we're doing this, could you please tell the jury if there are markers in the Faro data that were helpful in your reconstruction of this case?
There were markers when I received it that indicated sort of where evidence was, so where some of the cartridge casings, hat, wallet, and different items such as that. But I really didn't need to rely on that. I was really relying on the scan data itself. Is that okay?
Okay, and we're about at the end of the usable scan data. Now, do you know what that is that we're looking at in front of us there?
I'm told it's the pawn shop,
The mega pawn?
Mega Pawn.
And that's the fence, the entrance to the, looks like the parking lot there?
Correct.
And that would be where at least some of the responders to the scene came from?
Yes.
Okay, and they went down the yellow brick road. Let's go down the fence line to the left, and then down the fence line of the cyclone fence there.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine, and let's just do a very brief sweep up the other side of the road.
You mean the alleyway, or do you mean?
Yeah, the other side of the yellow brick road, so
Gotcha.
let's take a look at and this would have been where Mr. Santana did his filming, correct?
Correct.
So let's just stroll along the fence there and take a look at that.
Okay. Oops. Okay, let me back out here because it's.
That's fine, we have an idea. Now, could we get a measurement from approximately where Mr. Scott left the automobile to the entrance on the yellow brick road?
Yes. So it's about here. Let me go around this way. So about here?
Yes, let's start it there.
Okay, that is 286 feet.
Okay, could we get a screenshot of that?
Yeah. and the label?
Let's just call it car to YBR.
YBR. Oh, YBR. Okay.
And then let's continue that from that point to where the two individuals were when the fight took place,
Okay.
or when they stood up.
Okay, for that I'm going to turn on some markers here so I can see more or less where that would be. Just go down here. Where are they? Oh, I know. Sorry about that. It didn't turn on. But I had it right there. And the web share. Yeah, they're there. Sorry, I have to do that again. Okay, line.
And while you're doing that, could you explain to the jury why we're doing these screenshots as we go along here? Can this software be manipulated by the jury in the jury room?
Okay, no, so yeah, it takes a little bit of skill to manipulating around and such like that, so we're taking the screenshots so that obviously you can have something you can go back to the jury room with. Yeah. Okay, so I'll say that it's, the hat and the thing are in this area, so I'll just take it to here.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, that measurement is going to be 297.
297.
Yeah.
And if you could capture that and label that as YBR to hat.
Okay. Why? Oops. YBR to hat. Okay.
Okay, and then did you do what data did you review as you did this recreation?
So I was given an enormous amount of data, but really the two things that I used was really the SLED scanner data and then the original Santana video.
Okay, and did you do a camera matching of where the two people were standing when they stood?
Yes, I did.
And explain to the jury how you did that camera matching.
Okay. So like I mentioned before, that if you pull out a single frame out of the video, it's almost like a single picture, let's say. And what I'm doing is I'm referencing a pixel on the image to a 3D coordinate that is in space, that is from the laser scan data. So as a quick example, I can give you something that might make it a little bit clearer. Maybe this one. So this is just an example, and here's a frame, a single frame. And what I can do is, if I zoom in here, there's a little. I got to get in really close, but if you can see this here, I don't know if you show. Yeah, you do see it quite well. That's a little point. And so if I mark that point in the image, I assign it the same coordinate from the laser scan data. So I look at the laser scan data and I say, okay, that's the same point that's in the image. And if I do this for a few points or several points that are fairly well spread out, I can pick up where the camera is, or it will tell me where it thinks the best fit is for the camera. So as an example, I'll show it to you. So this is the solution, for example. So there is a number of points here, and if I zoom in real close, let me go around the other way. You'll see that it projects the image here, and this is the focal point. What I'll do is I'll just helps to visualize if I turn on the camera. So there's a little camera image here like this. And if I go to one of these points, let's say, for example, this one that's in the top of the conduit, when I select it, you'll see that it creates a ray. So what it's doing is, oh, here, let me pick this point. It doesn't matter, this point, it's fine. Okay, so it just put in a line. So what it's doing is saying, there's a point in the laser scan, and I have the image aligned with that. So if you draw a straight line from that point, it should cross the pixel in the image and then go back off into the camera. And so that's what it's done here. Now, it's not high resolution, but this one, this photo that or the point that I've picked, I think is this one that's up top here, but let's have a look. Here, well, let me pick this one here. There we go. So it creates this line. It goes through the top of this, I guess some kind of transformer or whatever it is that's on the pole, but you see where the line crosses, and that's where the point is. So when you do that for enough of them, when I click on this, you'll see that it establishes the camera position for me. So the important thing here is that I'm not choosing where the camera is. It's telling me where the camera should be based on those points. So some people, when you do it manually, and you've heard the term, I think, reverse projection photogrammetry, this is referred to as actually a resection. So taking all those points and then being able to calculate where the camera was is a resection. In the software, they call it an inverse camera, like you're going backwards to find where the camera was located. So using this, I can now export this camera, and the important thing here is that I have the perspective, I have the focal length and the field of view defined. So now I can export that, and I can bring that into 3D Studio Max.
Okay, and did you do that with the first shot fired in this case?
I did.
And can you show us that?
Yes. So let me shut these off. Let me go to I apologize, but something happened with the screen where it's made these things extremely tiny. So let's see, first shot. Let me shut the other cameras off. And like this.
Okay, so what are we looking at there?
Okay, there's just one more thing that I'd like to set up before I start talking about this, and it's just so you can see the overlay of the two.
And by the overlay of the two, what are you referring to?
What I mean is that when I bring it in, what I've done with the camera match is you have the point cloud, the data, and you have the image as the background. So much like what you saw in photo models, you saw that there was an image and then there was the lines that are crossing through. So you align the two which are together. So what I have at the moment is you're looking at the laser scan data, but in the background I also have projected the image from that frame. So I can shut off the point cloud data and just look at it with the photo. And it is right here. Okay. So what you're looking at now is the camera matched to the background. It's also the point cloud, or the data from the scanner is often referred to as a point cloud. So that's been shut off. And what I've been able to do is I can put in scaled models of the individuals back in place.
Pardon me, can we get a screenshot
Of this? Do you want me to call it first shot camera match, or first shot?
Call it state first shot.
Okay. Okay. So the benefit here is, of course, that we can move out of this position. But
Yes.
did you want me to?
So you can actually move the camera to get different points of view of that scene as it existed or it has been recreated, correct?
That's correct.
So why don't we just take a look from behind Officer Slager.
Okay, let's go do that. And let me just get the point cloud data and turn back on here. And let me change the background. Okay. So we can move the camera to different positions now?
And could we get a screenshot of that?
Sure. What would you like to call this?
Defense shot one.
Okay.
And then can you back out?
Sure.
So essentially, you're moving the camera around just to wherever you want to be directed, and it's keeping the same relative position between those objects?
That's correct.
Okay. And did you do measurements based off these objects?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what is the distance you computed, or can you compute here
Yeah.
between these two?
Sure. You just need to tell me where to measure to, and I can give you those numbers.
Why don't you measure from center torso to center torso?
Okay? Just a moment. Kill that. I'm going to put that in here. Okay, let me just do it this way here. Line. So I'm going to go from here to here, and that measurement is going to be 18 feet.
18 feet.
Correct.
And you know that Mr. Williams did a reverse camera match on these items?
Yes.
And the numbers he came up were similar to that, is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And is there any basis to doubt those numbers from Mr. Williams?
Well, I think the main issue there is not so much the number, but more what's behind it. So not the number itself, but how you arrived at that number and what kind of confidence you can have in that number. And so using a manual method of trying to fix the camera and trying to move things can be somewhat dangerous. And so you're using, I understood that he used transparencies and such like that. So this is something that people actually used to do previously, way back even in the 40s, 50s, when we had analog cameras or we had film cameras, and people would print out a transparency and they would try to align the image and such. So the method that I'm trying to use is trying to use or is trying to give me a better indicators of what kind of errors I have and what kind of mistakes can be made and how much confidence I can have in the results I have. So the fact that it was close, I think, is good. But again, I would just, there's a lot of factors, there are a lot of variables, I think, in using a more manual method.
And as a matter of fact, we had never asked you to compute a distance, had we?
No.
And in your view, what is the utility of using the Faro data to view these?
There's a few things in terms of when you're actually doing it as a reconstructionist, because you can move things and immediately start seeing that there's problems, like when you have a problem when you don't. And so it gives you some kind of feedback. And I can, just as an example, I can show you what happens if I try to move these characters out of position somewhat. So if I go to
here, this is back at the frame, and I need to find where that point cloud went. Right here. Okay, so I'm going to bring back the background frame, and I want to show you what happens if I start trying to place this in a different place. And I'm going to shut the point cloud off again. All right, so I'll take Officer Slager here, and I will try to shut off the point cloud. There we go. All right, so what I'm doing here is I basically can grab a hold of the torso position for this model, and you can see in the background I have the photo, or the image. So if I turn it off and on, just like this, I'll show you. So I'm going to turn that model off and on, so it's flashing there. So you can see how it aligns. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the torso, oops, down at the bottom here, and I'm going to move it. Screen. So let's say, for example, I start moving it out of alignment. So as soon as I move it, just, oh, I got the snap thing on. Let me take this off. That's what's causing me problems. All right. As soon as I move it just a tiny bit, you'll see that it doesn't align anymore. All right? So I do that, you see the legs start moving out of position, the feet start moving out of position. So this is equivalent to sort of, if you're looking at me from here, and I move side to side. So if I'm here and all I have to do is move very slightly this way or that way, you can detect it very easily. But if I move forward or back a little bit, it's much more difficult to detect. And that's the kind of thing that we have here. So it helps you to understand which areas are more sensitive to errors. And that's where using this method is much more beneficial.
Okay, did you also do a camera match at the taser drop?
Yes, I did.
And could you explain to the jury what you did and what the purpose of it was?
We're going to break at this point. You'll go to the jury room, please, and not discuss the case.